Welcome, everybody, to the Huddle, KGUN 9 streaming sports talk show. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Parris after a week off for Election Day. Pat, good afternoon. How are you today?
Good. Got a lot to talk about. A lot of great things. Jason, that was one of the great sports weekends U of A fans have had in a long, long time. Maybe, you have to go back decades. I'm not even sure when the last time, at least in my recollection, I don't remember a better, more fulfilling weekend for Arizona Wildcat fans.
I did see somebody point to December 15th, 2012, which was a day that Greg Byrne, then athletic director, actually had T-shirts made of the day. So if you're not familiar with that day.
I do remember that now that you mentioned it. For a day, I look at the whole weekend, but yeah, with Arizona basketball winning Friday at Duke, then you've got the Arizona women, you've got the football game where they came back, and then, that was a fun, let's say, 24 hours.
Yeah, it's comparable. That day, December 15th, 2012, the football team won the New Mexico Bowl early in the day after being down the whole game and coming back in a last-second fashion with an onside kick and the whole deal. And then the team flew to McHale Center, where the basketball team was down the whole game to top 10 Florida and beat Florida.
Yeah.
At the very end.
Yeah.
So yeah, comparable. I guess a weekend
very
versus
comparable,
a day.
right?
Yeah, we'll start with the football team and Pat. Classic trap game situation where it was between big win at home and another big game, I should say, coming up next week against two-time defending Pac-12 champion Utah. They go on the road to a struggling Colorado team, fall behind, but you know what? When it's all said and done, Pat, they found a way to win, and they made the big plays and made the right decision at the end, which was to down the ball and not give it back to Colorado and kick the game-winning field goal.
Yeah, and that's one of those where you get people going, "What are you doing?" I was at a watch party at the Arizona Sands Club, and everybody was, "What are they doing? What are they doing?" And it's like, no, this is the right move. You wanted them to score a touchdown there. It almost looked like they did score a touchdown, but the referees had blown it dead just short of the goal line. But that was the right move. And
totally, because if they had scored a touchdown and Colorado gets the ball the way they were going down the field, if Colorado got a touchdown, Coach Prime would have gone for two.
Because
they've got the best player, not to knock any Arizona player. They got maybe the best player in the country in Travis Hunter, wide receiver, defensive back. You don't want to take that chance.
No, you don't want to take that chance. They did the right thing. They win the game with the field goal. You have, Tyler Loop, you have so much faith in him, the special teams and the field goal unit. That wasn't even an issue. And it was basically, the equivalent of an extra point, that field goal try. So you had all the confidence in the world. I will say this, Jason, you're right about the trap game. We all knew it. They knew it too. You think Jed Fish didn't know that this was kind of one of those trap games that you could fall into after the big win over UCLA, and you're on a roll. You get ranked in the top 20, top 25, and you're in the top 25 in the national championship poll as well.
The 19th in the AP.
Yeah, now they are after this win. Yeah. I think what really it came down to is Colorado finally got healthy again. They were at home. It was senior day. Last time a lot of these guys are going to play in Boulder. They played the best game and you and I've watched a lot of their game. I think I've seen at least parts of every one of their games, if not all.
It looked like the early season Colorado team.
It looked like the early season Colorado. It looked like they had their kind of their mojo back, and they played very well. Arizona may have played the worst game they played in a few weeks, but it didn't matter because they stuck with it. They stuck with it, and they found a way to win. And maybe that's a sign of a team that's really turned the corner, Jason, because I'm not so sure they would have won this game back in week 2 or 3, because they didn't. They lost that game at Mississippi State that they should have won. This is just a different program. Here we are in November. It's a different looking program.
Yeah, I was at a charitable event that I didn't want to say no to. I didn't know the time of the start time hadn't been announced yet. So it was one of those situations where the game was on, but I couldn't sit and watch every single play. the way I wanted to, but it just seemed like one of those back and forth games.
Yep.
Who's gonna finally make a defensive player, who was gonna have the ball last, and that type of situation. And Arizona managed the clock well, so that takes us to this weekend. And they host Utah, like I said, the Pac-12 defending champions 2 times. And I can't believe we were talking about this. The chances are remote, but Arizona has a chance to play in the Pac-12 title game. They've got to win both games. They've got to have a couple interesting things happen, like Oregon losing at home to Oregon State, which is unlikely. But the fact that we're even talking about Arizona possibly playing in the Pac-12 title game, being in a tie for second place and winning those tiebreakers, just goes to show you how far things have changed in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah, they have changed in a very. I mean, you think about the where they were when Jed Fish took over the program, and where they were even in that first season, where
20-game losing streak.
Yep, and now they're suddenly, and you pointed it out well, and you showed it on the news last night on KGO 9 that there's a chance. It's an outside chance, but there's still a chance. And isn't that all you want when you get down to these last 2 games? You find a way to beat Utah. You go up to that team up north, and you knock them off, and you got a chance. It may not work out, but they're going to get, win these last 2 bowl games, Jason, and your bowl game goes way up too.
That's right.
So that's the upside of it.
Yeah, that's right. And now Jed Fish is being in the conversation apparently for the Texas A&M job, just from being around. I'll give you my 2 cents on this. Just from being around Jed Fish and being around the program, I'll give you my gut feel. I don't really think he has much of an interest in taking another college job. For him to have to go and start over after everything he's done here, what he has here, and the support here, I just don't think that's really what he's looking for. Why not use it to get another year contract and get a little bit of a raise? That's fine to have your name talked about. Do I think it's Jed Fish's career aspiration to go from Arizona to Texas A&M? I don't think it is. Look, you throw $100 million at anybody, and it's just too tempting to say no. But I just don't think that this is a serious situation. What I've said before, and I don't want to, get into this too much now, is I do think he could be an NFL coach one day. I really do. I don't think that's far-fetched. But I'm getting a little kick out of his name being thrown around for Texas A&M. I don't think that's really in the cards.
No, I don't either. I think I'm with you. I think the next job for him is probably going to be going back to the NFL, where he spent a lot of time.
But not as a coordinator. He's already been at it with Jacksonville.
Right, and you might be right. I mean, you have some thoughts about him being an NFL head coach someday. If I can read the room right now for the University of Arizona, I know a lot of fans will be saying, love the team right now. What a time to be a Wildcat. I don't think coach is going to leave.
The other elephant in the room is these budget cuts we keep.
And that's what I was going to bring up.
Yeah,
that has nothing to do with what this pool of money where he's going to get a raise is not the money that right now the University of Arizona suddenly finds themselves with 45 days of cash versus the 90 days they're supposed to have. That this is about an operating budget within the sports, the athletics department. That money can be found. That money can be drummed up through boosters. Jed Fish will get a nice little contract bump this year. He's not going to go to Texas A&M. That's not, a lot of people in Texas and out east are going to think that's a better job. I don't think it's enough of a better job. And I think you're right. He's already done the really hard work of pulling this team up off the mat and getting them back up at least in a national conversation. And I don't think he's going to want to do that again. I think what he wants to do is he wants to continue the proof of performance. This is working and it's going to continue to work, and we're going to do it for the next couple of years or a few more years. And then we'll see what happens with Jed Fish down the road. But I don't think any other college job is going to be enticing enough for him to leave.
Yeah. When it comes to U of A coaches who have left for bigger situations, I understand Jay Johnson going to he was the baseball coach who went to LSU. LSU to baseball is almost what Kentucky is to basketball, and he grew up watching LSU in the College World Series. Yeah, it's different. The soccer coach went to Florida. I mean,
And that didn't
again,
work. Yeah,
Florida to soccer, and that
yeah,
didn't work out. There
it
was a
didn't
little
work out.
situation there. So it's happened. Adia Barnes turned down the big money at Baylor, I believe it
Yep, it was
was.
Baylor, right?
Yeah, I just don't. I agree with you. I like the way you put it. After all the work you've done here, just to go there for
Right,
another little bit of money when it's
right.
not going to change your life, I just don't see it. And he had we don't really talk high school sports here on this show, but he had a top prospect from Tucson and just lost out on the NIL apparently. So I mean, other than that, he is he got him.
Yep, yep.
He's his sales pitch has worked from day one, and
Mhm.
it can only get easier or less difficult with the success the team is having on the field.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why I think he'll be rewarded. And he should be rewarded. That's just the way college athletics works, especially when you're talking about college football and college basketball for Power Five conferences. You have a season like this, and you're in the running for Coach of the Year, and your team's at least got an outside chance of making the Pac-12 championship game in football. You give them a raise. You're going to give them a raise, and that's what they'll do.
Last thing before we get to U of A basketball, I read an interesting article, Pat, about how they were wondering if people who are around the program, whether it be a sportscaster or I don't know, a spouse of a trainer or something like that, should be allowed to bet. Because before the season, I was pretty confident this team was going to go over the 5.5 wins,
Right,
And
right.
part of that's not like I'm some genius here. I'm just around the program. I'm seeing what's going on. I'm picking up on the vibes of things and who's getting along and that type of thing. And it looks pretty positive. I just thought that was kind of interesting. Maybe I should have put a few, what's the slang word? What is a dime? How much is money is a dime?
I don't know
Yeah,
betting
whatever the
lingo.
slang. Maybe I should have put a couple of grand on them going over 5.5. Here they
Well,
are at 7 with 2
there's
games to
7
go.
wins with a chance to
Yeah,
win 9. So
yeah.
yeah, yep.
All right, I have seen all of the Arizona basketball. Boy, they are impressive. Now, this has been a common theme, Pat, for the 3 years of Tommy Lloyd. Remember the first year we were sitting here, we're like, maybe 21-11,
Yep.
and then they get a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Then they lose Dalen Terry, Christian Coloco, and Benedict Mathurin to the draft. And we're like, well, maybe 21-11 this year. I don't know if we said that, but I don't think we were expecting number 2 seed in the NCAA
Right.
tournament. They reload this year. And I tell you what, I mean, compare Caleb Love and Keyshawn Johnson to Courtney Ramey and Gerald Henderson. This is a higher level of basketball. Kylan Boswell, where he is compared to where Kirk Risa was last year.
Right.
This is another level. Modiavis Krivas is a beast underneath. We're looking at him right now. He adds another level. We got Umar Ballo back. This team is loaded. You used the term firepower. Maybe I shouldn't have repeated that after everything that's going on in the world now. But this team is absolutely loaded.
It's
with,
loaded
with players.
It's loaded. And to go, we were all excited on Friday night, and there was still a buzz around town over the weekend. But let's not lose sight of the fact that that Cameron Indoor Stadium is no easy place to play. Duke was rated number 2 in the country because a lot of people thought they had taken a big step forward and they were going to be, one of the top teams in the country, and they still might be. I'm not dismissing that fact, but to go to Cameron Indoor facing number 2 team in the country and pulling out the win and never really looking like I didn't ever have the sense that they were going to lose that game, Jason. Now,
Never
things can
rattled.
happen, but they were always in that game and always seemingly able to answer back whatever Duke did. So that's the highest ranked team on the road, non-conference, that Arizona's ever beaten. Number 2 team in the country on the road in conference. And they deserve to win that game. And they won that game kind of going away there at the end with free throws. And then that late steal, Pella Larson, how great a play was that too at the end of the game to knock the ball back and they get the easy dunk. But then to come back last night, and I was at the game last night, Jason, with season tickets or at least a half season ticket package. I can't go to everyone because of our work schedule, but I took the night off last night and went last night. And that was a team that looked a little weary early in the game. They still managed to find a way, and they still blew out Southern. And Southern is, as Tommy calls it, a handsy team. So you've got a Duke team that plays very solid defense. You got a handsy Southern team. Now, these are the kind of teams they're going to play when they get to March, right? You're going to play elite teams like a Duke. You're also going to play these upstart teams that come out of mid-majors that all they're trying to do is get you out of your game. And in both cases, Arizona played their game down the stretch when they needed to, and that's what was impressive to me. 2 different wins against 2 different caliber of teams, but teams that were trying to do their darndest to stop Arizona, and Arizona just found ways to win.
Yeah, and after playing 7 guys last year, I mean, you got 10 guys who could easily make the rotation here.
And
KJ
I love
Lewis
that.
could start.
I love that.
I think KJ Lewis is as good as Dalen Terry was his freshman year.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. They just have more players.
They do.
And so KJ Lewis will, he's one of those guys who will, he'll be productive this year. He'll probably make a huge leap and start next year, when Caleb Love is graduated. And so just Borovichinen saw some quality minutes in the first half. Obviously Krivas, Morauskas, they've got a lot of players on that team. Boy, you hope they stay healthy and keep your fingers crossed.
Stay healthy.
Nothing goes wrong, and they're going to have a very high seed and be playing for a Pac-12 tournament. So, I mean, this team looks more impressive than either of the previous 2 teams. I know somebody out there could be cynical and say, well, those 2 teams didn't really make runs. The first one made to the Sweet 16.
Yep.
And the problem with the team last year,
it was a tough matchup against Houston. They just did not match up well against Houston.
Tough matchup. And then, like we've talked about last year, we don't need to rehash. They just, my opinion is they just didn't have a guy on the roster who was going to say, give me the ball, we're not losing.
Right.
And very interesting, Tommy Lloyd, who gets a lot of things right and is correct about 90-something% of things. One thing he may not have been right about, he not pounded the table, but he made a statement last year and said Azuolas Tubelis was an NBA player. I've coached him. I know what they look like. Azuolas Tubelis not an NBA player. He was waived by the Sixers, and he didn't make a big effort to stick around. He's back home playing in Lithuania.
He went for
whether it's because he can't make a step back 3 or whatever the reason is, he's not going to be an NBA player.
I think what was interesting last night, following up Caleb Love's terrific game on Friday night, and not terrific in the sense that he was, lights out shooting, but he was a lot of the heart and soul of that team for obvious reasons. Former North Carolina player going back.
Like his effort and his motor. Have you noticed that?
And then last night, he took it to another level as well. When that team was struggling, it was Caleb Love that ended up really kind of engineering this, getting this team going and scoring, going on that late run at the end of the first half to open up by 12 and then start the second half. And they blew out Southern. And Tommy Lloyd said after the game last night that was probably the most energy he'd ever seen from Caleb Love in any game he's ever played, meaning Tommy's probably watched a lot of North Carolina games and knows exactly what Caleb Love has. And he said he had just had a meeting yesterday afternoon with Caleb, a one-on-one, and that Caleb must have taken it to heart. And what I think what he was saying is, and it goes back to what you were talking about, Jason, about them falling short against Princeton and just not really having that go-to guy or that energy guy. Not only is Caleb Love capable of being that energy guy, but he's a get on my back because here we go kind of guy, too.
That's what I want to see.
And
I'm seeing a little of that from Keyshawn, too.
And he knew, Tommy Lloyd knew that after the season last year. And he went out and he may have gotten fortunate to get Caleb Love, but he also got a Keyshawn Johnson, who can be the same type of player and even a better scorer in some cases than Caleb Love. And I love this roster. I really feel like this team as a team is better than we've seen in the first 2 seasons of Tommy Lloyd as far as a team and the way they're going to mesh together that we're already seeing. I have high hopes for this team.
I really like the roster. Yeah, wow. Thinking about some of the top rosters in recent years, the Aaron Gordon freshman year, Rondé Hollis-Jefferson was a sophomore.
Right.
And TJ McConnell was a junior?
Probably. Because TJ McConnell didn't get here till like his junior year, right?
That was the 14 year. I believe they were 20-0. Brandon Ashley breaks his foot at Cal.
Yeah. Yeah.
They lose last second Elite Eight to Wisconsin. So you don't know what's going to happen.
No.
Injuries, circumstance. We've seen so many crazy things over the years.
Well, here's what
big picture from the program, or the Alonzo Trier saga, or the stuff like that.
You just don't want something like that to happen.
Right.
But here's another thing that I love, but I'm a little, I mean, you're cautiously optimistic, but this is going to help them too. Not only did they already play Duke and win at Duke, but don't forget, coming up right before Thanksgiving, they're going to play Michigan State. Then a couple of games later, they're going to play Wisconsin. Then they play Purdue. Then they play Alabama before they even get to the Pac-12. So my point is, they still have a lot of teams that are going to test them. And then more importantly, even if they were to lose or a couple of those, they're just going to be much more tournament ready when they get through the Pac-12 and get into March. I really commend Tommy Lloyd for this schedule and really taking on a big challenge, because there's some challenging games coming up.
Yeah, and there'll be teams gunning for them. You know, now they've got a third-ranked team in the country. Who knows where they'll be in a couple weeks with a couple more wins, right? Teams are going to be gunning for them. So yeah,
well,
I mean,
I thought Southern last night. That first 10 minutes of the game, Southern was beating them pretty good, and I think Southern was the kind. That's the kind of effort they're going to get. They're going to get everybody's best effort from here on out.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, absolutely. All right. I'll be. It's going to be exciting to see. I hope the football team can keep it together. I mean, keep it going. I mean, again, to wrap it up here, 2-time defending Pac-12 champion Utah. My gosh, if they win a 5th straight game, wow, won't that be something? So early kickoff. Will you be there on Saturday?
Yeah, 12:30 kickoff. Yeah, I'll be there.
I'll be there. Looking forward to that. All right, this has been the Huddle. KGUN9 streaming sports talk show. For Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. Thanks so much. We should be back next week. It's not anybody who's the loyal viewers, listeners out there. It's not 52 weeks just because of things like vacations and holidays. So I think it's like 45 weeks. So there'll be a couple around in the next few weeks. We're not there, but if we're not, we'll be back. We'll be back soon. But I think we're on for next Tuesday. So we'll see you when we see you. For Pat, I'm Jason. Thanks so much, and we appreciate it here from the KGUN9 studios.